Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the White House announces an investigation into who's funding Antifa and what is going on with Seattle students walking out of public schools to celebrate Hamas. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I was driving out to the Washington State Fair yesterday, and we had the radio on Fox News the whole time so that we could listen to the funeral of Charlie Kirk. And now it was billed as a funeral, it was billed as a memorial service, but it was so much more than that. It was a religious revival. And the contrast between the left and the right cannot be stronger than in this moment. This from the Huffington Post. Kirk Memorial Rage Fest. Trump hate eulogy. Ladies and gentlemen, the news. This was a thing that was all about prayer, that was all about inspiration, that was all about uplifting. Erica Kirk's speech. I don't think there was a dry eye in the country during that thing. Meanwhile, let's go over to after George Floyd died. Fiery, but mostly peaceful protests after police shooting. CNN Chiron. So the right can do no right, and the left can do no wrong. The contrast could not be more clear. When the right doesn't get something, we go, okay, we'll try again next time. When a tragedy happens on the right, what do? We pray. What does the left do? The left pounces. I know they always try to say it's us pouncing, but the left says, how do we spin this? How can we possibly spin this? Let's riot. Let's burn down buildings. And then if you say we rioted and burned down buildings, we're going to censor you on social media because how dare you call us out for the thing you're seeing with your own two eyes. It's insane. I'm not even Christian, and what I saw yesterday was religiously inspiring. Anybody who's got a heart, anybody who's got a soul, it was religiously inspiring. The whole beginning of that thing was a Christian rock concert filled with inspiring sermons. I actually clipped one of them, and this is from Charlie Kirk's pastor, Rob McCoy. It was so personal and so true the way he was talking. And there was a lot of laughter about who Charlie was and things he said and what he did. And it's okay to laugh in these moments as well. The idea is, what can you get from Charlie Kirk and then use it? What can you get from him and then move on? Before we get to the pastor, though, this is something fascinating. They think there were over 100 million streams of the memorial service yesterday. Forget the TV ratings for a second. 100 million streams. You want my theory on why so many people were watching this? One, the people who knew him. You're talking about a guy who had billions, literally billions of video hits. Two, how young he was taken. Three, his wife's speech and everything after that. But four, think of the amount of people who didn't know who he was, who now have found out who he was in the 11 days since he was assassinated, who are now watching his videos, who were told, oh, he's so terrible, he's so awful, and then watched his videos and said he was killed for having friendly debates with people? And then you got even more people inspired and more people watching. I thought this line from Charlie Kirk's pastor, this one cracked me up while I was driving yesterday.
In a conversation with Charlie in the green room in Korea, he said something to me that he'd said a number of times. He said, he kept calling me his pastor, and I stopped him. I said, Charlie, since the president's gotten elected, your stock has risen through the stratosphere, and I don't see much of you. I mean, he wasn't a very good congregant. He was on the road 320 days a year. But he said, Rob, not only are you my pastor, but you're America's pastor. And I said, Charlie, if we were at a tabling event on a campus where you had the table said, prove me wrong, I'd win. And he looked at me with that sheepish grin that he always has. doggone it if he wasn't right. I mean, I wasn't America's pastor 2 minutes ago, and I won't be after this, but for right now, he proved me wrong.
I love that joke at the beginning, though. Charlie was a terrible congregant because he was never around because he's always traveling. Doesn't mean he was bad at prayer. The guy was praying all the time. But that little section there was something that really hit home with me. Why? The pastor's probably a little bit older than me. But this was a guy who's looking up to Charlie Kirk, even though Charlie Kirk was a kid. Charlie Kirk had this amazing ability where even though he was so much younger than you, you looked up to him. And it wasn't because he was 6'5" or whatever it was. That guy was really, really tall. But it was because his intellect, his knowledge, his personability, his personality, all of that factored into the fact that you go, I want to do better for this guy. I'm so happy I get to interview this guy. But also, he always made you feel like you want to talk about what you want to talk about. Like when I interviewed him, all I wanted to talk about was Jewish stuff. And all I wanted to talk about was politics. He kept trying to drag it back to the Jewish stuff. My other favorite speech was Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, I love this guy. I hope he runs for president again someday because I can't wait to support him. Listen to this.
About maybe 10 or 12 years ago, a person I knew very well, had been very helpful to me in my campaigns when I was in the Senate, came to me and said she had met this very impressive young man, and he was going to start this group to go on college campuses and try to convince young Americans that ours is the greatest country in the history of the world and that Marxism was bad. And I remember thinking back then, I'm going to admit to you guys, I was a little skeptical. I said, college campuses, you're going to do that? Why don't you start somewhere easier, like, for example, communist Cuba, you know? But my skepticism was proven wrong. In place after place over the last 12, 14, 16 years, we've seen this renaissance. Understand where we were at that time in our history. Understand where we are still today in many places, where young Americans are actively told that everything that they were taught, that all the foundations that made our society and our civilization so grand, they were all wrong, they were all evil, that marriage is oppressive, that children are a burden, that America is a source of evil, not of good in the world. And here was this voice that inspired a movement in which young Americans were told that is not true. The highest calling we are called to is to be in a successful marriage and to raise productive children. And a movement that taught them that ours was not a great country, but the greatest, most exceptional nation that has ever existed in the history of all of mankind. And that it's worth fighting for, it's worth defending, it's worth preserving, and it's worth passing on to the next generation.
I didn't know Marco Rubio could be a pastor also. I didn't know he could be an inspirational speaker, but since he can do every other job, it shouldn't be surprising at all. I love that line at the beginning. Well, you'd have better success in communist Cuba than on college campuses. Just absolutely great. So it started with the inspiration. It transitioned into the politics. Then it was, here's your battle cry. Here's Stephen Miller.
You thought you could kill Charlie Kirk? You have made him immortal. You have immortalized Charlie Kirk. And now millions will carry on his legacy. And we will devote the rest of our lives to finishing the causes for which Charlie gave his last measure of devotion.
By the way, I love the mainstream media breaking down over Stephen Miller's speech. I listened to it again after I saw the backlash to it. I said, what are you guys so mad about? You're mad that they were saying, okay, you've made him immortal. You're mad that he said we're going to follow his example and be religious and be political and all. What are you mad about exactly? The left did not know how to cover this event yesterday. In fact, the right didn't know how to cover this. I was watching it on Fox as I was driving in the car. I got the satellite radio and Fox was on. And as I was going, I'm listening to that. And the Fox anchors are trying to fill the time like it's a baseball. They don't know what to say. They're repeating the same thing over and over and over again because they don't want to step on the toes of the speaker. They're trying to fly by the seat of their pants. The left doesn't know what to do because they have no context for what's happening. They still after the election, after what we see in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, they don't understand conservatives. What do conservatives want? We want lower taxes. We want less government. We want to be able to go to church. We want to be able to go to synagogue. We want national defense. And we want to be left alone. It's that simple. What does the left want to do? The left wants to make us do everything and us live according to their doctrine and affirm every crazy thing they do. The media does not get how to cover this. They just don't. Of course, the most standout moment of the entire event was Erica Kirk. Erica Kirk, the strength and poise of that woman to get on that stage after her husband was assassinated and to stand out there in front of all those people. Let's do a little quick math, shall we? 60,000 people in the stadium, 20,000 people in the overflow stadium. Somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 people outside the stadium, and 100 million minimum streaming that thing online. And she just lost her husband. And she's got 2 kids to take care of. And now she's got an entire organization to run as well, which is not prepared for the huge amounts of requests they have gotten that are pouring in right now. And everybody's looking to her. And her husband's not even buried yet. This is Erica Kirk.
Most of all, God's mercy and God's love have been revealed to me these past 10 days. After Charlie's assassination, we didn't see violence. We didn't see rioting. We didn't see revolution. Instead, we saw what my husband always prayed he would see in this country. We saw revival.
This is a religious revival movement. And I put the question out to the audience. If America becomes a more religious place, is that a good thing or a bad thing? We were built on Judeo-Christian values. I would argue it's a good thing if we are continuing those values. If you are saying we're about good, we're about morality, and the stuff that these religions, the Judeo-Christian model teaches us, then I'm all for it. I am all for it, and I think we'll all be better off for it. After all, that is what our country was founded upon. It doesn't mean everybody has to be religious, but it means we uphold those values. If more people start going to church and more people start going to synagogue, that is a net positive. That is a good thing overall. Now, something else. When Erica Kirk said this, there was a lot of reaction to it. But really, she became a woman who so many people now hold in awe by what she said next. Give a listen to this.
Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
"11 days after her husband was brutally assassinated, she gave an interview with the New York Times. She talked about how she went to see his body, how she saw the neck wound, and how he had a smile on his face, and how the doctors told her even if he had been shot that way in the operating room, they wouldn't have been able to save him, that he was dead almost instantaneously. But the fortitude of that woman to get up and say what she said. Now, I will confess, I had a hard time with what she said because it's not in my religious doctrine, the forgiveness in terms of somebody who wronged you. It's more a matter of, well, how do you seek retribution, or how do you get paid back, or how do you make it right, or what punishment does a person get? And we're not saying the two are mutually exclusive. We're coming up on Rosh Hashanah. We're coming up on Yom Kippur, the Jewish New Year, the Jewish Day of Forgiveness. And we're all about forgiveness and forgiving people and giving people second chances. But for me, I'm thinking to myself, I want this man to pay for what he did. I want this man to get the death penalty for what he did. But that's also why we don't let victims and relatives of victims decide the punishments. In terms of Erica Kirk, the fact that she had the fortitude to go there, and you can see that she didn't want to do it, but her faith teaches you that's what you do. You forgive. You don't hold a grudge. You move on. In her religion, you turn the other cheek. What a powerful movement. What a powerful, powerful moment where so many people look at that and go, okay, let's use this for inspiration. Let's use this for revival. Let's use this for faith. Something that's truly amazing to me was that moment when President Trump and her hugged on stage, and you could tell she's breaking on the inside, but she knows she has to be strong for her kids. She knows she has to be strong for the country. She knows she has to be strong for her organization. She knows she has to be strong for everybody. And she's barely holding it together, but what a powerful moment of inspiration. And I feel almost cheap contrasting these two things. Charlie Kirk, loving husband, loving father, religious man, want to have conversations. George Floyd held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach, dealing drugs, on drugs, counterfeiter, long criminal record. The left worships one of them. The left despises the other one of them. How do you bridge that gap? How do you bridge that gap? But that's what Charlie was trying to do. And she was trying to say, this is the example for you to model. Maybe she didn't even realize she was doing that, but she was saying, this is the example I'm going to be for my kids, for my organization, for my country. It was truly, truly, truly beautiful to watch. It really, really was. I can't think of anybody who wasn't inspired by that. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Jeff in Olalla. Jeff, what's going on?
I've got two questions about Charlie Kirk. You know, like you said, it's a terrible tragedy. I've never read the Bible completely, but my question about Charlie Kirk, my first one was, how scripturally sound was he?
In terms of, you mean quoting the scripture? That guy knew the English version of the scripture better than I do, and I say this stuff all the time.
But I mean, I listen to a lot of Christian radio, and I hear a lot of interpretations of the Bible. Where did he fall in the spectrum? And what they give a conservative a rating. Where would he rate? Was he
Put it this way. When him and I discussed, and when we were discussing stuff, it always takes me longer because I know it in the Hebrew, not the English, so it takes me a while to figure out what he's talking about in the English. In fact, that's anybody I talk to at any of these events. In terms of where he falls in the spectrum, I don't put it that way. My father has a saying he uses, which is labels are for clothing, not for Jews. I don't try to label the guy, even though he's not Jewish. I don't try to label the guy. Was he Presbyterian? Was he Catholic? Was he this? Was he that? He was clearly a guy who lived by his faith. He's clearly a man who practiced his faith. So if you're asking me to say where does he fall on the conservative spectrum, he was what a conservative is. Bible-believing, small government values. I'm not sure that answers your question, though, Jeff.
Okay. Well, my second question would be, he was considered self-made, but at the same time, I mean, from the little bit of the history I've seen about him, he had a lot of billionaire benefactors.
No, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there. As a guy who raises money for youth organizations, as a guy who raises money for synagogues and all this stuff, let me ask you a question. If I go out and I raise $10 billion, okay, did I do that? Did the billionaires do that? Or did the cause do that? And the lesson I have learned from fundraising for years and years and years is people sometimes believe in a cause. Sometimes people believe in the person in front of them, and most of the time they believe in the person in front of them. I want to invest the money with this guy. If he hadn't gone out and asked for the help from those people, he never would have gotten it. It seems like everybody was at this one meeting of the Heritage Foundation, I think it was, this one meeting where everybody was there, and he went there specifically to raise money for Turning Point. But if he hadn't had the idea for Turning Point, and he hadn't actually carried out the idea of Turning Point, it never would have happened. Let me give you an example. Black Lives Matter. Hang on one second, Jeff. I'll let you finish in a second. Black Lives Matter. They took in all that money. Where'd that money go? It went to people's houses and stuff. Charlie Kirk, by all accounts, did not live a lavish lifestyle at all. So all that money went into Turning Point USA. For 5 years, he didn't take a salary. Does that mean he's self-made? Does that mean billionaires made him? It means this is the guy who took the money the billionaires or whoever it was gave him and managed to build an amazing youth organization, a movement that helped change an election. I'll give you the last word, then I got to run.
Well, I'm not saying I have any disagreement with Charlie Kirk or what he did for himself and the Lord. My point would be just that he did successfully market himself, which is the American way, and he was an evangelist and a businessman at the same time.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that because he managed to build this. Right, there's nothing wrong with it. He managed to build this really, really successful organization, which look what's done on campuses. Jeff, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, University of Washington finds itself in a little bit of hot water again because of one student group. And why are Seattle kids marching out of schools again? You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Students went back to school at the University of Washington today. And as has been explained to me, they have an event called Dog Days. What Dog Days is when all the student activities and groups and clubs and you name it go out to the quad. And they're like, join us out here, be part of our club. Because once you're in the group you're in, that's kind of where you're going to be. Those are kind of the things you take on. Oh, I'm interested by this. That's your main recruiting day. So one group, which is part of the Green Wave Carnival, which I'm not entirely sure who they are and what they do, but what is their carnival? The group is called Green Wave. Here's the carnival they planned on running. Somebody who went to the University of Washington website to find out which clubs to join and was looking at who was going to be there, found this and tagged me in it on social media. What is it here? They said that what it was going to be, and let's get the entire thing here, you get to shoot Nerf guns at dartboards of political figures and enjoy a Red Bull Italian soda with a local reproductive justice group. Okay. Reproductive justice sounds like you want to take on people who do abortions, but okay, we'll leave it alone from there. Forget the reproductive justice for a second there. So 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks after Charlie Kirk is assassinated on a college campus, and you've had the President of the United States have 2 assassination attempts, never mind all the other stuff that's happened in the country, like in Minneapolis and anywhere else, you guys think it's a good idea to have people shoot Nerf guns at dartboards of political figures on campus? Now, to University of Washington's credit, when they woke up this morning and saw the emails from me and likely from other people, immediately the website was updated and the shoot the Nerf guns at dartboards of political figures was removed. Now, according to the University of Washington, they sent me a statement. They said the planned activity certainly did not represent the values of the University of Washington. The student group organizing that activity recognized it was inappropriate and decided not to do it even before university staff contacted them. They did not bring any Nerf guns to campus, and the event description has been updated to be accurate about what is taking place. University of Washington is committed to discussion and debate that is constructive, and the university opposes violence or allusions to violence. Now, first things first, I want to give the University of Washington kudos for acting so quickly. It's been, 2 years since they've been in my radar? And for 2 years, they have not really acted this quickly. So I want to applaud them for the steps they took. It seems like what happens here is you have this section of the website where any group can upload anything at any time about what they're doing, and there's no content moderation. I think the easiest solution for this going forward is for somebody from the administration or one of their staffers to moderate this content. I also want to say the following. I recall a video maybe a year or two ago where this activity was happening on the quad. This is not a new activity. This has been happening for a while. And as good as it is that University of Washington has taken the steps to get rid of it, this is something that is baked into the cake. This is something that is part of what the left is doing, where they're saying, if we don't agree with you, we get to shoot you with Nerf guns. Now look, throughout our history, we used to burn King James in effigy. It's a freedom of speech issue. Kudos to the university and at least the students for recognizing this may not be the best idea. But the fact that you think it's a good idea, look, I didn't like Joe Biden. I didn't like Kamala Harris. I don't have a dartboard with the two of them around. It's just not something I do. Perhaps maybe as opposed to demonizing everybody and saying, let's fire Nerf guns at them, maybe we should follow Charlie Kirk's example and instead have somebody out there who's sitting in a chair with a microphone who's representing the liberal position. Ask me anything. Prove me wrong. Let's have discussions. It's sad that only after his death we realize how novel that was and what the usual response of so many other people was to people they disagree with. So I'm glad this problem was fixed rapidly. I'm glad the school is taking a stance on this. At the same time, it never should have happened. And I wonder how many other things we haven't found out about that are happening in these college campuses. How many other college campuses had events like this that nobody reported on, that went under the radar, and now we're going to see pictures and videos of it because a lot of schools are going back, a lot of students are going back to schools this week. And this is baked into the cake of the left. We don't like you, we must destroy you. We must kill you. We must silence you. You don't deserve to speak. We're going to kick the President of the United States off of social media. We're going to censor you up the wazoo. We're going to have a ministry of truth to decide what's fact, what's fiction. This is the inherent problem with the left. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's going on?
Nothing much. You know, regarding the memorial for Charlie Kirk, I had to skip my church service yesterday just to listen to that for the whole 4 hours and 54 minutes. And I can tell you, you're right. It was a revival, and I became part of it.
That's right. A lot of people said, I was talking to some people who were there yesterday, and they were telling me, Ari, you don't understand. It was like being in the room. So I'm going to put out a challenge to everybody, including you, Leonard. If you were inspired by that, don't let it just be a one-day thing. Say, what message can I take with this and keep going with it? It's great to go to a concert, but do you go home afterwards and buy the album and keep listening to the band and keep wearing that T-shirt? This is, do you internalize that message and carry it forward? Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, the White House announces an investigation into who is funding Antifa. What are we going to find out about? Where is the money coming from? And is this the first steps to dismantling this domestic terrorist organization? You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. After President Trump's announcement last week that he's going to declare Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, it left a lot of people with the question of, okay, so what does that mean? What are you going to do? When are you going to sign it? Are you going after their money? What exactly does that mean? Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was out today in the White House press briefing room with some answers to those questions.
Antifa is going to be designated a domestic terrorist organization. The president intends to sign that executive order very soon as it's drafted, as soon as today, later this afternoon. And this is something the president campaigned on because we have seen a rise in violence perpetuated by Antifa radical people across this country who subscribe to this group. And unfortunately, it's gone widely uncovered by many in the legacy media. It also went completely ignored by the previous administration. Not anymore. Not only, as you mentioned, were the bullet casings subscribed with Antifa mottos, if you will, in the heinous assassination of Charlie, but there have also been more examples than I could read off for you here in this briefing room today of violence from Antifa. I will just read a few. In July 2025, several members of an Antifa cell ambushed and opened fire on officers at an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas, shooting one officer in the neck. Also in July 2025, 3 Antifa members were charged with assaulting a police officer during a violent riot outside an ICE facility in Portland, which for weeks prior had been under siege from the local Antifa terror cell. In February 2024, a transgender Antifa terrorist detonated an explosive device outside of the office of the Republican Attorney General of Alabama. In July 2023, Antifa members linked to abortionist group Jane's Revenge firebombed pro-life facilities and vandalized churches. In January 2022, a suspected Antifa member was arrested for bringing a pipe bomb to a pro-Trump event. In January 2021, an Antifa supporter threatened to shoot police officers and Trump supporters outside of the Florida State Capitol building. Again, I could continue to list many more examples for those in the room who don't believe this is a serious threat to American safety and our national security, but this administration knows that it is. That's why the president will be signing this order. And we will also be, most importantly, looking at who is funding Antifa and who is funding these other violent left-wing groups that we've seen perpetuate so much crime and mayhem across our country.
You know what's fascinating about all those examples? I don't think I heard the mainstream media cover any of them. And if they did cover them, it was, okay, there was a firebombing of this politician's office. Oh, it's Antifa? Well, get it out of the headlines. Get it out of the headlines. Let's disappear it as quick as possible. Most people in that room are probably sitting and thinking to themselves, I never heard of any of these. She's making it up. The Trump administration is lying again. I only saw outlets like the Daily Wire, the Post Millennial, et cetera, the Blaze, covering these. I didn't see, in fact, a lot of times I didn't even see Fox covering them. Fox covered it at the beginning, and then news cycle continues, and people don't cover it. And then when you find out it's Antifa, it's a week or 2 weeks later, and the news cycle has moved on. The news, the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, they didn't cover most of the riots in 2020. And when they did, it was, well, they're mostly peaceful. They always had to put that caveat in. The left is the party of violence, and the people who support the left are covering for it. Is it a wonder you haven't heard of most of these things? Caroline Leavitt brought the receipts.
Now, before I open it up to questions, I do want to speak on the heinous political assassination of Charlie Kirk. As President Trump powerfully stated yesterday, this assassination was an attack on everything that makes the United States of America the greatest country on earth. But that attack has completely failed. The heartwarming response from the overwhelming majority of the American people over the past 2 weeks is all of the proof that you need. The assassin who took Charlie's life can destroy flesh and blood, but he can never destroy the values that Charlie stood for. All across the country, millions of Americans have prayed, hosted vigils, attended church services, became politically engaged for the first time, and honored the legacy of Charlie and the ideals he died speaking for. The beautiful memorial service attended by President Trump and 100,000 great Americans in State Farm Stadium yesterday was just the latest example. And Erica Kirk's mercy was one of the greatest acts of grace this world has ever seen. May God continue to watch over Erica and their beautiful children. Unfortunately, there have been some jarring exceptions to this unity. This past Friday, 58 House Democrats voted no, and 38 voted present on a resolution that simply stated condemning in the strongest possible terms the assassination of Charles James Kirk and all forms of political violence. There were no strings attached to this vote. This was a simple gesture of human decency to denounce political violence. I wish I could say that this was only a fringe group, but 96 votes is nearly half of the entire House Democrat caucus. And they didn't just vote against this basic resolution condemning political violence. A number of those same Democrats took to the House floor to smear Charlie Kirk's name. The man wasn't even buried yet, and Democrat members of Congress were denigrating his memory on the floor of the House of Representatives. This was truly a sad moment and a clear reflection of how radical the Democrat Party has become. Many Democrats in elective office have now been totally captured by a radical fringe of the far-left base who want to dehumanize every person they disagree with. We must continue to call this wickedness out. It's the only way that our nation can heal. For too long, past leaders have offered platitudes while political violence has been allowed to fester and harm innocent Americans. There has been coordinated campaigns dating back years, spearheaded by radical left-wing organizations centered on dehumanizing, intimidating, doxing, and even attacking Americans whom they disagree with. These groups have radicalized impressionable individuals to foment violence. An attempted transgender assassin traveled to Justice Brett Kavanaugh's family home with plans to end his life. An attempted assassin came within an inch of ending President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania. And on the campaign trail, another attempted assassin tried to kill the president at his golf club in Florida. A left-wing assassin shot United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson right in the back in the heart of New York City. ICE agents are facing a more than 1,000% increase in assaults for simply doing their jobs. Violent radical left-wing mobs engaged in illegal behavior, targeted Jewish Americans, and shut down America's college campuses under the previous administration. Left-wing mobs burned down Tesla dealerships out of, quote, protest of Elon Musk and his policies. In May, a left-wing activist shouting "Free Palestine" murdered 2 innocent Israeli embassy staffers outside of the D.C. Jewish Museum here in Washington. These are just a few examples, prominent examples of the growing left-wing political violence in our country. Enough is enough, and as President Trump has promised, he will directly address the dark sources funding and supporting this domestic terrorism to finally restore order in our country.
She's 100% right. And the crazy thing is, I don't think we have a Democrat and Republican Party anymore. I don't think we have a right and a left anymore. I think we have common sense. I think we have conscience. I think we have pro-America. And then I think we have the people who want to destroy religion, common sense, America, core values. I don't think it's a right and left issue anymore. I think that the Democrats have been captured by this far-left ideology. And there's very few blue dog Democrats at all anymore, very few mainstream Democrats anymore. It's common sense, it's conscience, it's pro-America versus everybody who wants to destroy those values. When we come back, looks like somebody on the right got the wrong message from everything that's going on here and is setting up a snitch list. It's not what we do, guys. That's what they do. And Jimmy Kimmel's going back on air. My analysis of why when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. I'm torn on this next story, and I got some challenges with it, but we try to call balls and strikes on this show, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. According to Fox News, a conservative political action committee launched an effort to expose teachers across the country justifying Charlie Kirk's assassination online and is pushing back on claims from the left that conservatives are being hypocritical about free speech. Stefano Forte, executive director of the 1776 Project PAC, told the outlet that there's a new form live on the organization's website where users can flag teachers and administrators who have justified Kirk's killing online. A form, he says, has already yielded an endless stream of tips. Now, for me, I said, hey, if there are teachers who are teaching this kind of stuff, they're part of the problem. But here's the other thing. You know what else we've said? We don't like snitch lines. We don't like Bob Ferguson's snitch line. We didn't like Jay Inslee's snitch line. We didn't like anybody else's snitch line. Now, I understand if you want to exercise all these far-left radicals from the school system. Believe me, I do. But I think if you've been flooded with tips, we have a bigger problem. Can we even save the school system? But you're literally using a tool that we criticize the left for using. Now you're using it against them. If you were critical of the snitch lines, you should be critical of this one as well. Either it's a right thing to do or it's a wrong thing to do. Either people have freedom of speech or they don't, no matter how horrific it is. Now, I'm not saying these teachers belong in the classroom, and I'm not saying you shouldn't lose your job for justifying somebody being murdered. But at the same time, a snitch line is a snitch line, whether it's run by conservatives, whether it's run by Democrats. A snitch line is a snitch line. If you disagree with me, give me a call at 206-421-5757 or text us at 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel is going back on air. Now, here's what I think happened. I was doing an analysis of his ratings, of Stephen Colbert's ratings. Stephen Colbert has been going down since he went on air, and was down to 2.3 million viewers. That's it. CBS announces he's getting canceled. He skyrockets up to 3 million, but that's still 3 million out of 330 million Americans. That's nothing. That's bupkis, which is why he was losing $50 million a year on the show, especially with the staff that enormous that none of them are able to be funny. Here's the problem with Jimmy Kimmel. With Stephen Colbert, they said, we're going to ride it out till the end of his contract, so you didn't have legal issues. They took Jimmy Kimmel off in the middle of his contract, which means there's probably legal issues. Jimmy Kimmel and his attorneys went to meet with Disney on Friday right before the weekend. Odds are there's some legal stuff going on here. Odds are they probably couldn't do what they wanted to do. But here's another problem. They probably said, what are we going to replace this with? Right now we're losing $50 million a year or $100 million a year. But if we don't have anything to replace it with, what if we're losing $200, $300, $400 million a year because we don't even have this show anymore? Remember that at first they said they were going to run all these tributes to Charlie Kirk. Well, then they said we're not running that on Sinclair Media, for example. Is that because of backlash? Is that because they didn't think it would be profitable? Is that because other affiliates didn't want to carry it? Was there a political fight here? What this did do was show that, look, they want to put Jimmy Kimmel back on air if they were afraid of the Trump administration. This seems like growing pains with a free market, still trying to figure out what to do with late night TV. Odds are Jimmy Kimmel will get a little bit of a bump, and then just like Stephen Colbert, start sliding back down to where he goes. And odds are Disney and ABC will just say when his contract's over, you know what? We're done. We're finished with this, and change formats.
Do you think this might be a ploy to get a Colbert-esque bump? I just now thought of that.
You know, it's funny. Young Zach mentioned that earlier, and I thought he had a good point, but that's a lot of back and forth. I think they may have realized to get lemonade out of lemons. Maybe now we put them back in and we make the money. That may be the angle on that. That's what I think. When we come back, your calls, your texts, some of you have been holding for a while. We will get to those. Plus, more economic bad news for Washington State. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 4:45, your chances to win fantabulous prizes as Mike and I review the latest movies. But before we get to any of that, we go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our friend who's been holding patiently, Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's going on?
What's going on? So I wanted to first answer your question that you asked last hour about, are we better off being more faithful and respectful of each other? And the answer is yes. I think we need to stop being so polarized and divided and, stop having these far left-wing, jerks, whether it's Antifa or the anti-Semites or Misniks try to rip our country apart. I think it's why I have to guess here, but I think it's one reason why a lot of people decided to support President Trump's reelection, the same president who I want to thank here for condemning the recognition of Nazi as a state.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that is that it's only President Trump right now. It seems like the rest of the world is on the wrong side of history with this one.
Yes, they are. And what I find absolutely deplorable is the Palestinian Authority has done nothing to earn being a member of the community of nations, like cracking down on Hamas, handing over Hamas to Israel, like making sure there's basic food and water.
Well, it's more than that. They're still paying terrorists. So let's remember that, the Democrats gave him back the money to pay said terrorists, and they used it to pay terrorists. And then even when President Trump cut it off again, rather than spending the money to make, a Palestinian state, they're paying terrorists. Let's remember that aspect of it. But, Joe, I think you called about something else. What'd you call about today?
I also wanted to talk a bit about Jimmy Kimmel, and I just want to say I thank God that, he was not censored and will be allowed to return to the airwaves, where I will certainly not be taking much of an interest, but I think it's important that the FCC
Wait a second, Joe. I got to stop you there because you're proving a point I made on Friday. If all the people who are mad about Jimmy Kimmel actually watched the show, he wouldn't be in ratings trouble like what's happening with Howard Stern right now. So apparently Howard Stern is having issues renegotiating his contract with satellite radio. He wants too much money. He went so crazy that a lot of people aren't even watching anymore, and now he's not untouchable like he used to be. So look at what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. If Jimmy Kimmel was truly untouchable, this wouldn't have happened in the first place. They would have told the federal government, or they would have told their viewers, hey, he's popular. We don't care about the controversy, like Spotify does with Joe Rogan, don't you think?
Yes, and I would also add that, his executives, the executives really shouldn't have responded to the FCC and said, see you in court.
Well, here's the thing. The question is how much of that is everybody being performative? For example, Donald Trump likes to say things, and that doesn't mean they're actually going to happen. Brendan Carr likes to say things, doesn't mean they're actually going to happen. They can say whatever they want. They have freedom of speech, and for all you know, they did absolutely nothing to have Jimmy Kimmel yanked off the air. And you know what's leading me to believe they actually didn't do anything? The fact that he's going back on the air. If they were worried about invoking Trump's wrath and worried about their merger and worried about anything else, they never would have put the guy back on air. It seems like all that was being created because Disney didn't know what to do and wanted to say, okay, yeah, let's just go with that. But it seems like what actually happened, my theory is that Jimmy Kimmel and his lawyers met with Disney, met with ABC, said, we got a contract. You're in violation of the contract. Disney also looked at the backlash and said, well, we're going to lose those 2 million viewers no matter how many few of them there are.
Yeah, and, they could always, at the end of the contract say, look, you're not, we're not getting ratings. We'll let you go, but we're just not going to have the FCC push us around on some obscure podcast.
Right, but
be one thing if the guy came on your show.
Right, we're assuming they were letting themselves be bullied around. We don't have any evidence of that yet. We just have people saying things, and lots of people say lots of things. Joe, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one here from Kelly in Seattle. I don't have a problem with the snitch line for teachers. The snitch lines during COVID was to tell on your neighbors for being outside or having Thanksgiving dinner with their families. This is to weed out teachers who are telling flat-out lies to our kids and messing them up. Teachers have been protected for too long by unions and politicians. If this is the only way to get teachers to be teachers and not indoctrinators, I say go for it. It's long overdue. Kelly, your point is well taken. My issue here is is that there are so many teachers, I'm not sure you can actually save the system doing this. And don't you think these teachers' unions are going to rally to protect their own? For example, Seattle Public Schools and Ian Golash. Ian Golash is the one who had the posters of the Hamas terrorists in his room, took his students to a BLM rally. This is the guy who did some pretty awful things, posted online that he didn't believe October 7th happened. And they investigated the guy for what, over a year, until they finally said we're firing him. And then the teachers union comes along and says, no, we're appealing this. We're appealing this. We're appealing this. So, yeah, that's the question I have here is that can you actually fix the public school system? I'm not sure you actually can at this point. I believe it is that far gone. Something else is, can you fix the finances here in Washington? Change Washington had a great article, friends of the show, sponsors of the show, had this great article over here. Major stories about government fraud and waste make headlines for only a day or two before vanishing because the media quickly drops these stories. The people responsible avoid accountability and keep profiting from the wasteful and fraudulent spending. For example, let me just take this one. Remember it was, holy cow, Sound Transit blew more billions of dollars, unaccountable. They may not be able to finish some of these things. And then very quickly was, look, the train's going across the lake. Look, we finally did it after years of delays, after running over budget for a system that not that many people use. Woohoo, we did it. Now we can import all the drug addicts over to Mercer Island and Bellevue. Yay! Here are 3 recent examples from Change Washington. On August 22nd, WATEC, Washington State Government's Technology Oversight Office, announced it was scrapping a $292 million IT upgrade for the Department of Labor and Industries that has been in the works for a decade. Worse yet, 37% of the state's 56 IT projects costing taxpayers $2.3 billion were facing similar issues and were at significant risk. This means the state could soon be scrapping approximately $1 billion in wasted IT efforts. Is anybody going to be held accountable for this? They blew $1 billion on a software upgrade. I know how these things happen. I've worked in enough nonprofit organizations to know somebody's nephew has an idea for code and how some platform can work better. Let's trust this company. Let's not call Microsoft or Amazon or anybody else who actually does these things and use any product or adapt any product or, I don't know, talk to Salesforce or something. No. We got this. Because Bob's nephew, Joe, he knows what he's doing. Little Joey needs a job. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to give it to him. Here's another one. Poor morale, indecisive L&I leadership, and high turnover were blamed, but no one has been fired, demoted, or punished for this massive waste of taxpayer dollars. What would happen if I embezzled $100 from KVI? What would happen? Okay? I'd be fired with the quickness. You're talking about $1 billion wasted, and they didn't even upgrade the system for 10 years. Okay, here's the irony of this. If you started doing a tech upgrade in 2015 and it lasted 10 years, by the time you upgrade it, it's already out of date. Like buying new radio equipment and installing it 10 years later. Anything like that, that's what happened. It's already out of date. So, guys, you accomplished absolutely nothing. Where's the investigation? You know, if Bob Ferguson wanted to score some brownie points, he'd come out and hold a press conference and say, we're going to have a full investigation. The people responsible for this are going to be fired. But he won't do it because odds are he had something to do with hiring these people. Odds are they're backed by some donor of his. A new audit found that the Department of Community and Human Services sent numerous faulty payments to vendors and had such lax financial oversight that investigators warned of massive fraud taking place. DCHS only reviewed 1% of its distributions. Law requires a minimum of 33% reviews of its expenditures. This occurred at DCHS's grant program, significantly increased from $922 million in 2019 to more than $1.8 billion in 2024. 2 years ago, the Discovery Institute warned that lax oversight was causing the county to pay millions for ineffective housing services and created an environment for fraud. The progressive members of the King County Council all expressed outrage that this occurred, yet it's precisely their fault DCHS was allowed to spend billions without tracking payments or results for 2 years. Let's back up a second here. So do you remember all the news reports last week? I saw it from every outlet. You had Gourmet Zahalai and you had Claudia Balducci, both who are running for King County Executive, both of them are saying, we're going to be accountable. We're going to be accountable. Where were you while all this was going on? I know it's going to make you feel old in a second. You know, it's been 5 years since COVID. It's been 5 years since BLM riots. 5 years. And let's not forget, these cuts were done then to the police, and then the money was reallocated to these community groups with no tracking, no accountability whatsoever. Claudia Balducci and Gurmay Zahalai were both on the King County Council that whole time. So what were you doing the whole time? If we had an honest media here in Seattle, you know what the next question should be? When Claudia Balducci or Gurmay Zahalai announces, whoa, we're going to take care of this, we're going to clean it up. It got messed up on your watch. So why do we believe you are the ones to fix it? Again, no one has been fired. No one has been demoted. No one has been punished for this massive waste of taxpayer dollars. King County Councilmember Reagan Dunn has put forth measures to stop the wasteful spending from occurring in the future, but he's outvoted all the time. He's the only one who's not a radical leftist on the King County Council. According to Change Washington, we should note these poor management practices occurred at DCHS and within other county programs such as youth diversion when Dow Constantine was the county executive. Constantine recently resigned from that position to accept a $6 million pay package to lead Sound Transit. I think it's a lot more than that, guys, but I'll double check. Sound Transit revealed a $35 billion construction shortfall to build the light rail lines promised to the voters. This will force the Sound Transit Board to cancel building future lines, alter the construction schedule, or go back to voters to ask for more money. The primary reason for the massive cost overruns is poor management, causing delays as inflation drives costs higher, and non-revenue riders making up 44% of the ridership. Do you know what that means, non-revenue riders? People who don't pay, homeless people, drug addicts. That's what happens when you don't put in turnstiles. How much would the turnstiles have actually cost? By the way, I should do some checking into that. I should say, was this ever even considered? You just said from the beginning, nah, we're not going to do it. You're basically running Zoran Mamdani's transit system. Nobody pays, and it's going bust. It is estimated that households within the agency's taxing district, meaning King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties, pay an average of $1,700 annually for the light rail system, whether they ride the trains or not. The current $185 billion price tag is rapidly approaching 3 times the original budget. On the individual level, this means that each of the 3.4 million people who live in the district is responsible for $55,000 in taxes that people outside of the district are not. So congratulations, guys. You are paying for this thing. How much have you paid in your car tabs, never mind everything else? The shortfall has been years in the making. Washington Policy Center's Charles Prestude stated that the problem is due to how the board was purposely isolated from public oversight. You mean having an unaccountable, unelectable board that could do whatever the hell they want with taxpayer dollars is a bad idea? Gee, never saw that one coming. It's because nobody is paying attention to any of this. And because progressives think that your money is their money and they can do whatever they want with it. Has there been an audit of Homeless Inc.? If you guys said when the homeless problem first started that there were 3,000 on the streets of Seattle and you're going to eliminate homelessness in 10 years and it's been 17 and now you have 30,000 people on the streets of King County, don't you think that calls for an audit when all you've done is blow billions and billions and billions of dollars into the problem and it's only gotten worse? At what point do you go there needs to be accountability? So Change Washington has some suggestions. Numerous groups and transportation analysts have been calling for a direct election of Sound Transit Board of Directors who are currently appointed by one of 3 county executives. This will make board members more beholden to the taxpayers instead of the special interest groups, contractors, and other politicians. If the public is paying for it, shouldn't we have a say in how the money is spent? Respected transportation policy expert Bob Pichu argues that it's time for the Washington State Auditor to conduct a comprehensive performance audit on Sound Transit to examine the causes of the overruns and delays. We have a Washington State Auditor? I didn't even know we had one because they don't do anything. How much waste is at the state government level? How much waste is in Homeless Inc.? How much waste is in all these different agencies? What does a state auditor do all day? What do they do? Is there anybody who will ever hold these guys accountable? Even if we had elections for any of this stuff, will anybody hold them accountable? I don't think they're going to. You want to know how bad the economy is here now? Fox 13 had a story. Washington State jobs report is in. Over 13,000 Washingtonians lost their jobs last month. The biggest growth in jobs was in government. Every other job category saw losses. Our state unemployment rate continues at 4.5%, higher than the national average. Do you think this is because you hit so many companies with such high taxes that they are laying people off and they are moving people out of town and they are moving their companies out of the state? They all warned they were going to do this, and yet every single week, Microsoft's laying off more people, Boeing's laying off more people, Amazon's laying off more people. Why is it always in Seattle? Why is it always in Western Washington? Why is it always in Washington State? Because the taxes here are so high. Why would they pay employees to be here when they're getting taxed for having those employees here? How many businesses have we lost already? Oh, and by the way, the sales and B&O taxes that were passed by Bob Ferguson and the Washington State Democrats, those haven't even kicked in yet. Those start on October 1st. We don't even know how bad this is going to be. We have guesses, but we don't know how bad this is going to be, and it could be getting a lot worse. Today, I went to fill up my Dodge Charger, which, thanks to my friends over at Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, got some new tires on that sucker. It's running great just in time for the fall season when it could be slipping everywhere. I take it to fill it up, and what happens? I see that regular unleaded gasoline is over $5 a gallon at the gas station near my house. Over $5 a gallon. Mind-blowing. Why is that? Because of the Climate Commitment Act. Have you seen any news outlets reporting that it's because of the Climate Commitment Act, or are they all blaming some kind of supply chain issue or refinery issue because that's what Bob Ferguson tells them to say? Because it's easier to print the press release from Bob Ferguson rather than do math and figure out this was all predictable. But they don't even want to look at the numbers. This is all because of the Climate Commitment Act. Oh, it's a refinery issue? Why aren't the prices this high in Idaho? Why aren't this high even in Oregon? Because of the taxes Jay Inslee, Bob Ferguson, Joe Wynn, and all the Democrats put on us here. And where's the money going? Over 90% of it is going to nonprofits. None of it is going to combat climate change. And in fact, during this entire time, carbon emissions have only gotten worse. It is just a huge grift. It is just a huge scam. And once again, nobody is accountable. Nothing's going to change. Until these people are out of office, nothing is going to change until there's accountability. And I'm concerned if there ever is going to be. Luckily, a lot more people are opening their eyes. Luckily, a lot more people are waking up. I'll give you two inspiring examples. Yesterday, I was out at the Washington State Fair, and there was somebody signing the initiatives there to keep boys out of girls' sports and to make sure parents knew what was going on with their kids' education. This person did not look like a KVI listener. In fact, this person looked like they might be a member of Antifa. And I was kind of surprised, and I turned to the person, I said, "Why are you signing that if you don't mind my asking?" And they said, "It's blanking insane what they're doing in the schools and how they don't want us to know about it." I was inspired. Maybe I shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I was walking down a hallway, saw another person who does not look like they would be a KVI listener. Shall we just leave it at that? And they saw I was wearing the Charlie Kirk Freedom t-shirt. And they said, "That's a great t-shirt." And I just had to do a double take. I was so surprised. In fact, most places I went at the Washington State Fair yesterday was nice shirt, nice shirt, nice shirt. Where'd you get it? Where'd you get it? Where'd you get it? Where'd you get it? I think the tide is changing. It's up to us to educate everybody on the things they may not know. And also tell them to listen to the Ari Hoffman Show 3 hours a day on Talk Radio 570 KVI. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues. Governor Gavin Newsom is now passing a bill to ban ICE agents from wearing masks. Great. Now do the Hamasniks and Antifa. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a bill to become the first state, for California to become the first state to ban federal immigration agents from concealing their identities with masks. Great. Now do Antifa. Now do the Hamasniks. Now do any of the lunatics on your streets. So you're going to go after the ICE agents who are getting rid of the illegal aliens. But you're not going to go after Antifa, the domestic terrorist organization? You're not going to go after the Hamasniks who are supporting a foreign terrorist organization? You're going after the feds. Many of them live in your state and work for ICE in your state. Here's what Gavin Newsom said when he signed this thing.
Democracy where we have rights. Immigrants have rights. And we have the right to stand up and push back. And that's what we're doing here today. This is a disgrace. This is an outrage, what we have allowed to happen in this country. And I could not be more proud of this legislature, the legislative authors, to the community demanding more from all of us at this moment to push back. I'll be signing a bill, the first in the nation, saying enough. To ICE, unmask. What are you afraid of?
Well, they're maybe afraid of you, that you just called them a disgrace. And because of your left-wing activists, there is an over 1,000% increase of attacks on ICE agents. Maybe that's why. Maybe because when they started rioting against ICE, you let them have Los Angeles County. You let them burn the Waymos, the self-driving taxi cabs, Gavin Newsom. You know what they're afraid of? Them targeting their houses. And as somebody who gets death threats, I got to tell you, not an easy life to live. But it happens. When these guys are going after them, I notice you don't care about the lunatics who are destroying your state, who are destroying your cities. You don't care at all. Instead, you're targeting the ICE agents. Who are you protecting, by the way? Oh, here's one. I saw a case of this. An illegal immigrant gang member who returned to Washington State after deportation has been sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for trafficking fentanyl and opening fire on police officers. Prosecutors say Israel Garcia, 36, was deported in 2021 after serving time for assaulting federal officers but unlawfully entered the U.S. the following year to resume his violent drug trade. His arrest came after he unleashed gunfire on law enforcement during a 2022 fentanyl bust, nearly killing an officer. On September 18, 2025, U.S. Chief District Judge Stanley Bastian sentenced Garcia for discharging a firearm during a drug trafficking crime and possessing more than 400 grams of fentanyl with the intent to distribute. Garcia was a documented gang member who was living in Yakima. He was also ordered to pay more than $6,000 in restitution to the Spokane Police Department and will serve 5 years of supervised release as he re-enters the U.S. after his prison term. Likely he will be deported after his prison term, not actually re-entering the U.S. Garcia's criminal history underscores how dangerous it is to allow him back into the U.S. In 2015, he was convicted of assaulting federal officers during a drug and firearm trafficking investigation. Sentenced to 7 years in prison after his release in 2021, Garcia was deported to Mexico, but by 2022, he had illegally re-entered the U.S. and resumed trafficking fentanyl, distributing thousands of deadly pills throughout Washington State. On October 16, 2022, Garcia traveled from Yakima to Spokane to deliver 10,000 fentanyl pills. When Spokane police identified themselves and attempted to arrest him, Garcia opened fire while trying to flee. The gunfire endangered multiple officers, as well as Garcia's own passengers, a man, a woman, and a minor child, who remained inside his vehicle. One officer narrowly avoided being killed when a bullet deflected off a car door window. Even so, he sustained serious injuries to his head and face. Officers returned fire, striking Garcia, ending the immediate danger to both law enforcement and civilians. The passengers, including the child, were unharmed. Because Garcia was still under federal investigation for his prior conviction, he was immediately arrested for violating his release terms before being indicted on the new federal charges. Remember, this all happened during the Biden administration, and thanks to sanctuary laws, like the ones here in Washington, like the ones in California. This is all because of failed Democrat policies, where now you have an illegal alien drug trafficker who had been arrested multiple times for other violent crimes and now open fire on police officers. So rather than wanting those kind of people out of this country, Gavin Newsom says, let's target the ICE agents. I think that's going to work out swimmingly. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Bob in Seattle. Bob, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Ari? Hey, as of right now, I'm not actually in Seattle. I'm in Montana, and gas price gas is $3.09 a gallon.
Yeah, I had a passenger in my car with me this morning when I was going to the gas station. They told me that where they live, it's like $2.90.
Yeah, I mean, Montana's not even the lowest. But there might be actually people that listen to you that don't realize it's the frog in the pot sort of thing. They don't realize that like 48 other states in America are lower than actually all 49 other states are lower than Washington. But the rest of the world actually doesn't pay like $1 a gallon less than Washington. And I would argue that the state of Washington does not get that much revenue for the gas that they not like they think they do, because all of the long haul truckers, the guys that use diesel, they can go 1,200 miles on a fill up. So what they do is they hit the border in Idaho, they fill up, they go into Washington, and then they come back out before they get gas again. So they don't even buy the fuel.
Yeah.
So the fuel still gets used.
But they're hitting all of us. What they're doing is we're paying for all this now. So because they want all this money to address climate change, they're hurting everybody, including all the people they say are low income, right? All the people who need cars to get to work, all the blue-collar workers. They say they're all about the workers, and they're making it more expensive for them, for the farmers, for everybody else.
The state of Washington has a long history of harming the the people with less money. They do. Let me make an example. You remember this thing called cash for clunkers?
Oh yeah.
There used to be $1,000 car. You could go buy some. It's practically worn out, but it's still getting up down the road. And the mom with 3 kids, a single mother with 3 kids, doesn't have a whole lot of money. She can go out and buy $1,000 car. Well, when they did that, they gave $4,500 for the trade-in, which made every single car that you could push, pull, or tow into a car lot worth $4,500. That hurt the single mom of 3 kids. Now she had to come up with $4,500. So my attitude is, if the people of the state of Washington if they must like it, okay, they keep voting for it, right?
Well, my thing was, with regards to the people of Washington, my question is, what's their breaking point? It wasn't the autonomous zone. It wasn't COVID. Was it these taxes? Is the taxes going to be the thing that breaks everybody? We shall see.
Well,
Bob, go ahead.
Let me remind you of something. I might have the numbers wrong, and I know that you're really good at this. So I read it. I think it was Jim Walsh said there was either 700,000 or 800,000 voters on the voter rolls that don't have a Social Security number in the state of Washington.
Let me be clear about what this is specifically. Glenn Morgan did a report. Jim Walsh was commenting on the report, but 1 in 7, by the estimates of Glenn Morgan from We the Governed, 1 in 7, they don't have the correct data on the voter rolls. They are missing that data, whether it's Social Security or something else. Now, it doesn't mean they're illegal aliens, but it could mean they're duplicates. It could mean they're dead. It could mean they're illegal aliens. It could mean anything. But unfortunately, Steve Hobbs is right now fighting the feds, and it looks like Bob Ferguson's going to help him out, and it looks like Nick Brown's going to help him out when the feds want to see that data. I believe he said he is mulling it over, investigating whether or not he should share it with them.
Well, Sideshow Bob's going to continue to flirt with Donald Trump to the point where
that's all he's got. And in fact, now all he's doing is blaming everything on Donald Trump when it's clearly Democrats' policies that are doing a lot of the stuff. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show, Bob. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, the federal government is now saying Tylenol is causing autism. We'll have the president's comments for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Don't forget, coming up at 4:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes as Mike and I review the latest movies. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our frenemy, Bennett the Protester. Bennett, what's going on, man?
Hey, I was listening to Zach talking about how he went to Europe and riding on an elevator and they had the word Schindler on it. And I was like, okay, is this Schindler's List? Ha, ha, ha.
That was Friday, man. Where you been? It's been like 72 hours since we made that joke. If you want to get mad about the jokes of Fake News Friday, you call on Friday to get mad at us, man.
No, I'm not mad. I'm just saying that you have to tell. All right, but listen, you have to tell me he was in a moment where the elevator was crowded and he was like, one more, we can take.
Oh, we made all those jokes, Bennett. We made all those jokes, man. They went over real big in synagogue this weekend. Why'd you really call, man? What's going on?
Well, why do we keep talking about the social media thing you were talking about where, because I'm talking about making the video at Charlie Kirk when he came to talk at UW, and you were like, you and Mike were saying, if you create wholesome, good content and just put it out there, that social media will boost it for people. And my actual most passionate take is not about politics. It's about the problems with social media right now. And I've posted a lot of silly puns and jokes on Reddit. Remind me to give you one before I go. And most of them get between 0 and 5 upvotes. Once in a while, one of them will get 50,000. And it's very obvious that it's not merit. Most of the time you show people lists, they can't pick out the one that went through the roof. It's something that I call the pile on lottery, where once a critical mass of people like or upvote something, the system shows it to more people, and then those people upvote it. But it's more of a random process than anything to do with the underlying.
So I'm not sure. So here's just what I've been following. And once again, I don't write the algorithm. I don't got anything to do with this. But here's a little advice for you. Okay. What is the thing I asked you, a person I disagree with basically all political issues, with very few exceptions? Why did I ask you to come on the show for an interview one time?
Oh, I think, well, are you talking about the transplant games thing?
Exactly.
Or something where we didn't happen to disagree? Okay.
No. But I asked you to come on to talk about that because it was interesting to me. A lot of the accounts that I follow on social media have nothing to do with politics. They have to do with movies or funny animals or whatever the case may be. You have a unique opportunity. I'm not saying this to get you to stop posting about politics. That's literally not why I'm saying it. It is not that at all. What I'm saying is that if you post a story a day, a profile a day about these people with the transplants, maybe that'll have a better impact than any of the political stuff. Because I know that when I post things about sometimes the Mets or anything else, I posted, what had the most clicks ever on my page? There was a joke about whether or not LeVar Burton was going to be the host of Jeopardy. You remember that? That was a while ago. They all said, oh, Alex Trebek died. We should have LeVar Burton do it. And I put up a joke, which was Riker and Picard in The Next Generation. And I said LeVar Burton, who starred as Geordi, cannot be the host of the show because Captain Picard would never put a member of his crew in jeopardy. That thing went uber viral. Uber viral. And it had nothing to do with anything my platform was about, ever. And that's still my highest performing post.
Right, but I understand. I'm just saying that there's still a large amount of randomness to it. So there's an experiment by a Princeton psychologist named Matthew Salganik. It's over 20 years old, but if it sinks in, it can really rewire the way you view almost all of these outcomes, including ones not on social media. So he was working with a music rating site where people could download and rate songs, and he got them to divide their users into 8 separate artificial worlds, where in that world you could rate songs, but other users could only see the ratings from other people in the same world as them. And then you could recommend songs to other people, but again, you could only do that within the same world. And what they found was that in some world, some songs would become wildly popular, but they would fizzle in all of the others. You had to meet a certain bar of quality in order for a song to go to blow up and become uber viral. But once you met that bar of quality, it was all luck. And the eerie conclusion, of course, is that we're just living in one of those many possible worlds where the things that we see going through the roof, whether it's people, whether it's ideas, songs, political arguments, whatever it is the outcome of a large part a random process.
Look, I got to tell you, I don't know enough about this kind of stuff. I know what trends on my media account, and sometimes I am completely shocked. Like, for example, my highest performing post of the last 2 weeks. You know what it was? It was the Friday Charlie Kirk got assassinated. It's a 10-second clip with Charlie Kirk wishing everybody a good weekend and a good Shabbos. That was my highest performing thing, not revealing what's going on at UW, not revealing what's going on in Seattle, not talking about what the Democrats are doing, not talking about what the Republicans are doing. It was that. I wish I had more insight to give you on this, buddy, but what I keep saying, wholesome content is wholesome, and I'd be curious to see what happens if you start profiling all the people in that wonderful group you do all this work with. What would happen then? Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. So President Trump made a big announcement today. He's recommending that pregnant women don't take Tylenol anymore. He was worried about this being the cause behind autism. Give a listen to what he said in the White House today.
The meteoric rise in autism is among the most alarming public health developments in history. There's never been anything like this. Just a few decades ago, 1 in 10,000 children had autism. So that's not a long time. And I've always heard, they say a few, but I think it's a lot less time than that. It used to be 1 in 20,000, then 1 in 10,000. And I would say that's probably 18 years ago. And now it's 1 in 31, but in some areas it's much worse than that, if you can believe it, 1 in 31. And I gave numbers yesterday. For boys, it's 1 in 12. I was told that's in California, where they have, for some reason, a more severe problem.
Now, here's the thing. Nobody's debating these numbers. Nobody's debating these numbers at all. The question is, everybody wants to find the cure. Everybody wants to find the problem. Now, even if President Trump finds the problem, even if he and Robert F. Kennedy and everybody else is right about what they're saying right now, the left will never acknowledge it. They're going to fight it for the sake of fighting it. Now, before we get to the Tylenol aspect of this, one of the other things they said is the vaccine schedule. And this thing I've been talking about for a long, long time. To be clear, all my kids are vaccinated. All my kids are up to date on all their vaccines except for the COVID ones because, well, we know the story with that. But regarding other stuff, yes, we know. But the vaccines they're giving kids nowadays when they're born, they're basically ODing these kids. They're giving them on top of things they're not even going to come in contact with for years. And the question is, are you giving them too much at one time? Now, that was the first thing they were talking about. But then you got into this little announcement here.
First day, all of these great doctors behind me were there. I told them, this is what we have to find out. Because when you go from 20,000 to 10,000, and then you go to 12, there's something artificial. They're taking something. And by the way, I think I can say that there are certain groups of people that don't take vaccines and don't take any pills that have no autism. Does that tell you something? That's currently, is that a correct statement, by the way?
There are some studies that suggest that, with the Amish, for example.
The Amish, yeah, virtually. I heard none. See, Bobby wants to be very careful with what he says, and he should, but I'm not so careful with what I say. But you have certain groups. The Amish, as an example, they have essentially no autism.
So what he gets into here, and the announcement from the Autism Action Plan from the White House, FDA will issue a physician notice and initiate a safety label change on acetaminophen. Acetaminophen. That's the complicated way of saying Tylenol. So what they're saying is that while women are pregnant, they shouldn't be taking this. Anybody whose wife has been pregnant before, they tell you not to take a whole bunch of stuff, by the way. Am I saying they're right or am I saying they're wrong? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. This is some research I'm going to do, and I'm definitely going to talk to some of my doctor buddies about this whole thing. But I know they say don't eat sushi. I know they say don't drink wine. Could this be the latest thing? I'm more fascinated if it's the vaccine thing where they're piling them on top of these kids when they're just a couple days old and give them one after another after another. We got like 10 over the course of a few years when we were kids, and now they're hitting them with this and that and the other thing. And, of course, what's in these things? The problem is no matter what the left does, whatever Donald Trump does, the left is going to freak out about it. If he says Tylenol's bad, watch. You're going to see a reaction where they're going to say, everybody buy Tylenol. Swallow as much as you can. Eat it for breakfast. Eat it for dinner. Eat it for lunch. The guy can't win. And meanwhile, we're trying to solve a very serious problem. And for the left who says they're following the science, haven't heard you guys come up with any suggestions about what you think is causing autism. When we come back, my friends, Mike and I review the latest movies and your chance to win fantabulous prizes during our Real Deal giveaway. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Normally, we bring you the latest movies, but a movie that's 30 years old is getting its IMAX re-release. And I had to go. Absolutely had to go. So we were all talking about going together in the office. Unfortunately, the scheduling didn't work out for Mike or Kevin. But young Zach and I had a mandate to go see the movie. And what it is Apollo 13 was remastered for IMAX and re-released in IMAX format. Now, normally I know these things are just a huge money grab or an attempt to get people into the theaters for whatever reason or get them to go see something in IMAX. It was spectacular. It was really spectacular. Everything looks great. Everything holds up. And actually, this is a testament to when they first made the film. At the time when it came out, because I was a big subscriber of Entertainment Weekly at the time, I read a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, and I bought the DVD to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff about how they tried to get everything as accurate as possible. In fact, they wanted to film in the original Mission Control, but the room wasn't big enough to get all the cameras in, so they recreated Mission Control. Zach, who's a big space buff, was telling me that props that were used in Apollo 13 are so accurate that they're big for collectors in the space collection world because they're so accurate to things you can't get anymore. The attention to detail is magnificent. And normally when one of these movies from 30 years ago gets an IMAX re-release, you go, they definitely didn't have makeup back then for high def. There's only one scene that stands out as not looking good, and it didn't look so good the first time around. The only scene to me that looks fake in that movie is when Tom Hanks is having the daydream about actually landing on the moon and doesn't get to when he realizes he's not going to get to land on the moon anymore. That scene looks a little faker. Everything else, magnificent. The sound, the score, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. And this is such a well-done movie that the jokes hold up. That the plot, everything, even though it's based on true events, et cetera, so of course it's going to hold up. It's historical. It is so well done that in IMAX, you see the little papers that are around them at the workstations in NASA. You see the stuff that's written on them. It's not, pick up laundry. It's so well done. You see all the calculations. It's really spectacular. Really, really spectacular. Also, Apollo 13, I think, ruined this genre for me because nothing else holds up. Mike, for example, the movie Space Cowboys. I like the movie Space Cowboys. That's the one where they launched the old guys into space. But I remember being so disappointed that the launch itself looked so terrible on camera. And that came out, 10 years? Maybe 7 or 8 years after Apollo 13? So let's see. Let me do some quick math here. Apollo 13 came out when I was about 16, 17 years old. That came out when I was maybe it was 5 years, maybe a little less. Mike's going to the computer right now, check it out, because it may have not been that long.
I think we're dealing with like a 95 to 97.
It was
maybe like 3 to 5 years.
I think it was a little later than that because I was in college when Space Cowboys came out. So I think it was a little bit later than that. But either way, Armageddon, amazing launch sequence, amazing music. The two ships side by side looks amazing. Space Cowboys, the whole blast-off sequence is really cheesy. Oh, here we go.
5 years.
5 years.
Apollo 13, 1995, Space Cowboys 2000.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. There we go. Fact-checking in real time. But I'll tell you this, is that Apollo 13 was so well done that anytime you see any of these space movies, I'm always measuring it against that. I'm like, that looks faker than Apollo 13. I recommend, if you love this movie, you go see it in IMAX. I recommend if you haven't seen this movie, you go see it in IMAX, and it's only in IMAX through the end of the week, I believe. I believe it's actually
through tomorrow.
Oh, it's got Thursday on Fandango. But, okay, through tomorrow.
Yeah,
Mike
so
says.
If you want to see it on Thursday, you could go to the Regal Thornton Place at 11 a.m. or the Regal Barclay Village in IMAX in Bellingham at 11:25. So yeah, technically you can go see it on Thursday.
There you go. Like. Exactly right. But I highly recommend you go check out Apollo 13. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today we're giving away 2 Adam passes to The Long Walk from the highly anticipated adaptation of master storyteller Stephen King's first written novel. And Francis Lawrence, the visionary director of the Hunger Games franchise, comes The Long Walk, an intense, chilling, and emotional thriller that challenges audience to confront a haunting question: how far could you go? See The Long Walk in theaters right now. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10, win 2 Adam passes to The Long Walk. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, everybody had class at Charlie Kirk's funeral and gave an inspirational message Everybody except for Tucker Carlson will have his insane comments when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Congratulations to Casey in SeaTac. You are the proud winner of 2 Adam passes to see The Long Walk, which is in theaters now. Your next chance to win is coming up at 5:45 during our Good News giveaway. But before we get to any of that, I have to say, every single speaker at Charlie Kirk's memorial yesterday was a class act, except one. Let's focus on the good first. Vice President J.D. Vance, who was good friends with Charlie Kirk, said this, and I thought it was really, really great.
I was telling somebody backstage that I always felt a little uncomfortable talking about my faith in public as much as I loved the Lord and as much as it was an important part of my life. I have talked more about Jesus Christ in the past 2 weeks than I have my entire time in public life. And that is an undeniable legacy of the great Charlie Kirk. You know, he loved God. And because he loved God, he wanted to understand God's creation and the men and women made in his image.
I keep coming back to the fact that the one time I was able to interview Charlie Kirk, all he wanted to talk about was religion. That's all he wanted to talk about. And stupid me kept going, let's talk about politics. Such an opportunity, and I blew it. Unfortunately, I'll never get the chance again to fix that. This was a massive religious revival, and I can't remember in my lifetime ever hearing so many politicians talking about religion. It seems like religion has become we're not going to discuss that ever because we're afraid of separation of church and state, even though it says it nowhere in the Constitution. The First Amendment says, shall make no law regarding established religion. That means banning it as well. Yesterday was really nice to see all that kind of faith on display, even if it wasn't my faith. But seeing all that on display gave me great hope for a new generation of people when it seemed like the last generation threw away so many values and morals, compromised their values and morals, or were brought up with none to begin with whatsoever. I'm not telling you to go out and be religious, but it seems like there's some real common sense and moral fortitude that has been missing recently, and it's nice to see that being back in the public discussion. And we can debate that. That's something to discuss. I love debating religion. I do it all the time. But that's something that seems to have been missing from the national conversation. It was just ban it, ban it, ban it. Get it out of the schools. Get it whatever you want. Shut down the churches. Shut down the synagogues. President Donald Trump was also praising Charlie Kirk yesterday and was talking about how so many ways what he practiced is the basis of our democracy, of Judeo-Christian values.
The tradition of reason and open debate that Charlie practiced is not a pillar of our democracy. In many ways, it's the basis of our entire society. It's the right and inheritance of every free American, the greatest legacy of the Enlightenment, and among the most treasured achievements of civilization. We will defend it at all costs, and we will carry forward the torch of liberty that Charlie Kirk held so proud and so high. He was so proud. And he did hold that torch high. We will never, ever let it fail. We will never let it fail. But we're going to raise it higher than ever before. It's going to be raised, and this is the beginning.
He's right. So many people out there are now doing things they weren't doing before. So many people out there are now saying they're talking about their faith. I heard that nonstop since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I was afraid to talk about my faith before. I'm talking about my faith more now. I'm going to church. I'm going to synagogue. It's amazing the impact his death had on so many people. Really, it's truly incredible to watch. So it's a real shame that somebody took that opportunity to try and twist it for their own purposes. Tucker Carlson has been on an anti-Israel, anti-Jewish binge since he got thrown off Fox News. He couldn't resist the opportunity to take a dig during the memorial service. Now, you may think I'm overreacting. I think because a lot of people didn't understand what he was talking about, this flew under the radar. But not for people who are educated in these things. Give a listen.
Ultimately, he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem.
Okay. Joker's unhinged there for a second. Now, for those of you who don't know, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens have been on this whole thing of the Jews killed Charlie Kirk. Israel killed Charlie Kirk with no basis, no evidence for that whatsoever. They're trying to say because he disagreed with a few policies of Israel's that they had him taken out. What would be the upside? All of this has been disproven. And in fact, anybody close to Charlie Kirk has discussed on social media, we have no idea what these lunatics are talking about. This is nonsense. But you don't want to believe any of them? Let's hear from Charlie Kirk himself, what he thought about Israel.
The greatest trip I ever took was to Israel, and the second greatest trip I ever took was to Israel, and I've only been there twice. I'm a huge supporter of the Holy Land, of Judea and Samaria, and up against the terrorist organizations, Hezbollah, and the Palestinian Authority. I go to college campuses, and I've spoke at more college campuses than any Christian conservative in the last couple of years. Stanford, Berkeley, Brown, UCLA, University of Texas, University of Michigan, Michigan State University, you name it, I've probably spoken at major universities or states all across the country, from Montana State to Maine. And I am confronted many times by young Christians that believe that Israel is an oppressive apartheid state that basically should not exist in its current form. And so I'm here to clearly communicate to you that we have to do a much better job of communicating, of conveying, I should say, the geopolitical significance of the state of Israel. The world's a better place because of the state of Israel. We have all three monotheistic religions represented in the Israeli Knesset and the Israeli Supreme Court. Israel actually expresses freedom of religion. I'll never forget when I was driving down to Hebron last year, and you're driving down south from Jerusalem, and there's this sign, and I don't speak Arabic, nor do I speak Hebrew. So I turned to my driver. I said, "What does that sign say?" There was no English translation, and there was a arrow in the middle, and an arrow to the right, arrow to the left, and the arrows to the right and left were red, and the arrow in the middle was black or some other, not a warning color. And so I said, "What does that mean?" They said, "Well, if we turn right, you'll die." What do you mean you'll die? Well, if you turn right, you go into the Palestinian Authority-controlled territories, and as a Christian, a Westerner, or a Jew, they'll kill you. I said, well, what kind of ridiculous double standard here? If Arabs come into the Israeli-occupied areas, they're given benefits and rights to vote. You go into the Palestinian Authority areas, Palestinian Authority-controlled areas, you get your head cut off. That was a really interesting moment.
So I think Charlie Kirk has been very, very clear on his feelings regarding Israel. But Tucker Carlson couldn't resist the opportunity. Go into the whole, oh, the Jews killed Jesus, and oh, the Jews may have killed Charlie Kirk. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's unhinged, and it's classless. You can't bury your politics for 5 minutes, your hatred for 5 minutes, to memorialize your friend. All anybody's talking about Tucker Carlson's speech is that moment. Nobody's talking about anything else with Tucker Carlson's speech. The guy has lost it. And more I'm wondering, if Fox News was his guardrails, and when they realized he wasn't even listening to them anymore, they said, "See ya." At the time, everybody was, oh, it's Dominion, it's this, it's that. I wonder if the guy was just absolutely losing it. I can't tell the difference between him and people on the far left anymore with the insanity that they say, especially regarding Israel. There's a story this weekend that got buried because the media wanted it buried. A guy walked into a country club in Nashua, New Hampshire. Walked in during a wedding and just started firing. But the media buried this story. Most people don't even know it happened. In fact, I bet a bunch of you in your vehicles listening to the show right now don't even know it happened. Why? Because a witness to the shooting told a local media outlet this.
You get the sense that they knew who.
Didn't hear anything. He just came out and said.
What he said.
Yeah, what he said was the children are safe and, free Palestine.
That's what the witnesses at the event said. Now, all of a sudden, it's gone. Completely gone from the headlines. So you went in and shot up a wedding. Did you do it? Did you free Palestine by shooting somebody who's at a wedding in the face? Did you do it? Did you accomplish anything? Beyond crazy. Speaking of not accomplishing anything, tomorrow there's going to be a vote at the United Nations about recognizing a Palestinian state. Some of you have reached out with questions on this. What does it mean to recognize a Palestinian state? Well, it means the same as if I, Ari Hoffman, and the Ari Hoffman Show recognize Quebec as independent from Canada. Absolutely nothing. That's what it means. It doesn't mean anything. But what it does is it emboldens Hamas. Look what we did. We won. We got away with it. We massacred all them Jews, and now they're going to give us a state. And now we're going to get a state. Guys, you had a state. You were given Gaza. You were given the West Bank in multiple different peace treaties. And instead of actually building it up and making it normal countries, you guys chose terror. Palestinian Authority is no different from Hamas. They just wear suits. So, you guys think this is going to make a bit of a difference? It's not. All these politicians from France, from the UK, from Canada, from Australia, who are going to put out their Happy Jewish New Year messages, they're completely full of it. Because they're literally siding with the people who want to kill the Jews and rewarding them for October 7th for the rape, torture, murder, and kidnapping of over 1,200 people and 250 more for the kidnapping, and the injuring, maiming, and massacring of thousands of others. You're rewarding them by giving them a state? Do you think this is going to move the needle closer to getting the hostages back? You know what Hamas did over the weekend? They thanked all those countries. If you're being thanked by Hamas, you're on the wrong side of history. And you know what else they did? It's amazing how Hamas doesn't have any food or claims they don't have any food or water or anything else, but they have graphic design. They have graphic design. They made all these graphics of the remaining hostages and said, yeah, you're never getting them back. Congratulations, guys. You really moved the needle in this one. Really, really did. So when Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the UK, is standing next to Trump last week, Trump flat out came out with it and said, you don't know what the hell you're doing, and you're making things worse here.
We have to remember October 7th, one of the worst, most violent days in the history of the world, not just there, the history of the world. And I got to see the tapes, and I wish I didn't see them, actually. But I got to see them. And I want an end. I want the hostages released. And I think it's going to be okay. But it has been a brutal period of time. But this has been going on for a long time. This is not something that's over the last year, 2 years, but this has been for decades and decades. But we want it to end. We have to have the hostages back immediately. That's what the people of Israel want. They want them back. And we want the fighting to stop. And it's going to stop. But a lot of bad things. You know, Hamas said that they're going to put the hostages up as bait. They're going to put the hostages in front of any attack. And that's pretty brutal. We haven't heard that one in a long time. So we have to remember that. So I have a disagreement with the Prime Minister on that score. Okay?
Can you imagine if Kamala Harris was president of the United States right now, or Joe Biden was president of the United States right now? They'd be acknowledging a Palestinian state as well. And what does that accomplish? I declare bankruptcy. It doesn't accomplish anything. Who is the government you're going to hand over a Palestinian state to? By the way, when has the UN ever voted on something and it actually made a difference? So you're going to give a state to who? Who's the government? Hamas. Hamas is the government. Who are you empowering if you actually did that? And you think Israel's going to go along with it? If I was Israel, I would say, if I was Bibi Netanyahu, I would say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to annex the entire West Bank, and we're going to annex all of Gaza, and you guys can go blank off. Because why are we going to listen to you anymore? Somebody had a good line the other day, which was, so they say that Israel's losing the information war, which they are. Don't get me wrong, they 100% are. They have spent, the Wall Street Journal said they spent over $89 billion on the war and nothing on PR, which is probably correct. But it's more important you win the actual war than the information war. Are there issues of not winning the information war? Absolutely. Like this one right here. Do you know that anti-Israel activist groups are organizing a mass student walkout across the Seattle area public schools and colleges on October 7th, the second anniversary of Hamas's terrorist attack on Israel? Flyers and social media posts that people sent to me from far-left organizations include the Issaquah Student League and Washington Walkout for Palestine. Isn't it amazing some of these groups just pop up overnight and magically they have all these perfect graphics? Now they're promoting the demonstrations as a way to honor the anniversary of the massacre the activists describe as the heroic Palestinian resistance and a great achievement for the Palestinian liberation movement. So the execution, torturing, raping of over 1,200 people, maiming of thousands of others, and kidnapping 250 people is a great achievement for the Palestinian liberation movement. Are you serious with this? These are the flyers they're putting out. They're saying the quiet part out loud. Last year when they did this, 16 area schools participated. Now they're urging everybody to rally in Cal Anderson Park when they leave school. Now, Issaquah High School sent out a letter to their parents and to the students saying, yeah, it's non-excused absence. Oh, here we go. Now, it's non-excused absence. Why do you let the kids leave the building in the first place? They are on your watch. They are your responsibility. They're saying, well, if you leave the building, you're not our responsibility anymore. This is the same school which suspended a teacher for promoting this insanity in school and saying blank eyes, free Palestine. Remember that one? We talked about her a few weeks ago where we actually played the clip of the stuff she's teaching in the classroom. This is who these schools are. They now are worried about, the only thing they're worried about is losing federal funding. That's it. That's the only thing they're worried about. So they want to say, oh, no, we're actually addressing this. You want to know what else it says on these flyers? One state of Palestine from the river to the sea. That means they don't want Israel to even exist anymore. They want the release of Palestinian terrorists and end to all U.S. aid to Israel. They also condemn Israel for defending itself with U.S. assistance against attacks from Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iran. If you are on the side of Lebanon, Yemen, Iran, Hamas, and Syria, you are on the wrong side of history. But this is what students have been brainwashed to do. And they're going to march out on October 7th. At the end of the day, is any of this going to free Palestine? Is any of this going to do that? If Palestine wanted to be free, when Israel gave the Gaza Strip over to the Palestinians, they could have chosen to make the Singapore of the Middle East. That's what they promised at the time. Instead, they chose to make a terrorist enclave. And now you think these other countries are actually going to accomplish anything? No, of course not. This accomplishes absolutely nothing and only makes things worse for the hostages. I didn't hear any of them talking about how we need to get the hostages back. I don't think any of them are doing anything to get the hostages back. This is the nonsense you're going to play out tomorrow at the UN. And something else. They're specifically doing this tomorrow. You know why? Because it's Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. And a lot of the Jewish staffers won't be around to object to it. Why do you think they specifically picked tomorrow for this vote? It's very clear what their intentions are. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Looks like there's some news on the Jimmy Kimmel front. Some of the affiliates are rebelling and saying, we're not airing that show. We don't care if you're putting them back on air. We'll give you all the details when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and a copy of 7 Steps to Successful Retirement by Brian Evans and Madrona Financial. Yeah, another reason. Always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Our friend Matt Gilbert shared a post that's going viral from somebody named Tiffany Fong. It's got a picture of a chili dog. He wrote, "Suck it on, chili dogs." But here it says, Jimmy Kimmel averages 126,000 views per episode. Let's see if my chili dog can get more views than Jimmy Kimmel. Scrolling down right now, it has 748.3 thousand views. So, yes, the chili dog actually has more views than Jimmy Kimmel. Let's update you in case you're not aware of the latest. Jimmy Kimmel, it was announced earlier today, will be back on air tomorrow night. Now, this follows a weekend of protests at some locations. Some were a little bit more radical than others. An ABC affiliate in California, a guy opened fire on the building. When we found his social media, he was a far-left anti-Trump radical. Is anybody surprised? Look, who hasn't been mad at the TV before? Who hasn't? But you don't open fire on it unless you're playing duck hunting. But you can never shoot the dog. I always want to shoot the dog in the duck hunt. You can never do that. I can't shoot the ducks either. Did anybody ever actually successfully shoot a duck on purpose? That game was rough, horrible. I don't know why we all loved it so much. Anyway, Jimmy Kimmel is going to be back on air tomorrow night. However, Sinclair Media, which is one of the syndicators, one of the affiliates that says they are not going to run the show, is now doubling down and saying, we're not going to do it. We're not going to run this thing. They released a statement that said, beginning Tuesday night, Sinclair will be preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live across our ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news programming. Discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return. Now, there is something that we haven't really discussed regarding the Jimmy Kimmel thing. We discussed it a little bit with Lars during Lars Unleashed. You can't say something flat out fake and have people think it's real if you're broadcasting the news kind of thing. There are responsibilities for that. Now, comedy is something completely different. And you know what? You could say whatever outrageous thing you want under the First Amendment, but there are FCC guidelines about what you can say and what you can't say. Now, if you knowingly transmit fake data, trying to convince everybody it's real, there are problems with that. There are legit problems with that. So when Jimmy Kimmel blames everybody in MAGA or says the shooter is a MAGA supporter, which he very, very clearly wasn't, and we did the whole timeline of how he knew by then he really wasn't, but he's trying to say it wasn't anybody on the left, that's fake news. To my recollection, the left used to care about fake news. They don't care about it anymore. So now this tees up something interesting. If your affiliates won't air your programming, you're not going to make the money from the advertising, which may have been what started this whole mess in the first place. Now, it falls on Nexstar, another large affiliate conglomerate, Nexstar Media. If they also say they're not going to air Jimmy Kimmel, then ABC and Disney have a big decision to make. That means even less people are going to be watching this show. As we discussed earlier, Stephen Colbert got a bit of a bump after he got quote-unquote canceled, even though his show is going to be on for another year and a half before it actually gets pulled off air. Odds are ABC and Disney said, look, we can get sued by Jimmy Kimmel, we can get sued by them, we can be hated by the left, or we can just leave him on till the end of his contract, and chose that route. But the affiliates don't want to air the content. The question is Nexstar, which is bigger than Sinclair, going to do exactly what Sinclair did? Now, my thing is that nobody's watching Jimmy Kimmel. But do you guys have something that's going to replace it? Like a chili dog, right? What do you have that could get more views? Right now, they're saying that Sinclair is saying we're going to air news in its place. Is news programming going to get more views than Jimmy Kimmel? Well, probably. Would you like to know Jimmy Kimmel's ratings right now? They're about 2 million people in a ratings segment. So really, it is 126,000 people per episode. That's about it. That's everybody who's watching the show. So the real question is, how many people are going to watch this thing if the affiliates aren't carrying it anymore? This also kind of shoots down the whole, the FCC was involved. If the FCC was involved, they wouldn't have even considered putting this back on air because they would have been too worried about the Trump administration, too worried about the FCC. I think this really proves that this was an affiliate problem, where you have Nexstar and Sinclair saying, we don't want to run this anymore. Sinclair has never been shy about their views. They say we are a conservative media company. We're owned by conservative people, and this is what we do. So I'm not surprised by any of this. I'm just kind of curious what's going to happen with Nexstar Media, and does that keep Jimmy Kimmel off air? Now, my question is, what does the deal look like with the affiliates? Is he going to sue the affiliates? Is he going to sue ABC? Who's he going to sue in all this? Or is he just going to sit back and collect his check? You know what I would do if I was him? Here's what I would do. I would say, tell you what, you're going to pay me the rest of my contract, but you're going to let me out of my non-compete clause. That would be the settlement you come up with. I'm going to get all the money, and you let me out of my non-compete clause so I can start a podcast or I can go on MSNBC. And that's the best of both worlds. Because then what will happen? He'll get a big boost off the podcast for however long it is, or he'll go over to MSNBC or whoever else wants him, and that'll be that. That's what you could do. Still, nobody will watch the show, but they're probably losing as many millions of dollars on his show as they were losing on Stephen Colbert every single night. My question is this. Do you think they should let him back on air till the end of his contract? You think they should just say sayonara? What do you think ABC and Disney should do? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757.
Well, and put some thought into it also. You know, it's so easy. Don't put that Jimmy Kimmel on. Well, they have to run something. They can't run nothing.
Right, exactly. What would you put on instead? You want to say, okay, we're going to do the late news? We're going to rerun the 11 o'clock news? Well, people already saw the 11 o'clock news at 11 o'clock. What do you want them to put on in its place? Because that's the problem. Oh, wait, Mike, I got it. I have a solution. Here's what we should do. We should do a TV version of the Ari Hoffman Show.
We already do. It's on the computer. It's in the computer world.
Not that one. We should do...
It's the same thing.
You're right. You should stream us over there. But I think that's what we should do. We should have Sinclair and Nexstar pick us up because we are way funnier than Jimmy Kimmel, right?
We left that building. We were just there 2 years ago.
Hey, we got our chairs
over
back.
Here. It's our time over here. Over there, it's their time over there. Over here, it's our time.
It's our
time over here.
It's our time over here. Exactly right. When we come back, my friends, more bad news for public schools in Oregon. My God, they can't stop having problems over there. We'll give you the latest details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. All right, if you got the kids in the car, you may want to earmuff it for this one story here, but an Oregon high school principal has been arrested on child sex crime charges. Jeremy Peter Williams, 49, of Longview, Washington, was taken into custody on Tuesday for allegedly producing and distributing child sexual abuse material, also known as child pornography. He is the principal of Rainier Junior Senior High School, located in Rainier, Oregon. The Cowlitz County Sheriff's Office said a search warrant was executed at Williams' home on September 16th. Investigators seized his phones, computers, and digital storage devices. Detectives received multiple referrals on August 28th from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which alerted authorities to the tracking of child sexual abuse material. The information came from social media sites, which reported multiple images with, I'm not going to say this, but basically it traced back to him. And he was booked into the Cowlitz County Jail on charges of dealing in depictions of minors engaged in all that. And they say he was bonded out on Wednesday. His bail was set at $100,000. According to the school district, he was on administrative leave for an unrelated issue during the time of his arrest. The sheriff's office stated there was no evidence to suggest any students in the district were involved. What do we say all the time? Predators go where there is prey. Meanwhile, there is some good news for Oregon schools. Students at a high school in Oregon held a walkout in response to one of their teachers posting it was good that Turning Point USA founder and political activist Charlie Kirk was assassinated on September 10th. The teacher, despite heavy backlash over his comments, remains employed at the school. According to the Post-Millennial, Bobby Nove, a teacher at Thurston High School, posted the one-word response, good, while he shared the news article that Kirk was dead. Students led a walkout in response to the post from Nove, who remains employed by the district. The post quickly led to a strong reaction from parents, students, and others who were outraged that a teacher at a high school was celebrating the death of Kirk. And some said it also implied the teacher would be fine with others who agreed with Kirk to be killed as well. KVAL interviewed a student named Trey Sonehill who said him saying good kind of implies he would be okay with other murders that make students and other teachers feel unsafe. So we're out here to stand for that and stand up for people that aren't us. In a statement, the school district said the views expressed in the post do not reflect the values of the public schools. As a public school district, we're committed to providing a safe and respectful environment for all students, staff, and families. While we cannot comment on individual personnel actions, know that we are taking this seriously. Another student from the high school, Rowan Taylor, said the comments from the teacher said that ideology and just believing that murder is okay is not good, and we strongly believe that we need to stand up against it, and there's no place for that here. If he's okay with murder, it brings up the question, what else is he okay with? Seems like the students are more intelligent than the teachers over there in that school district. This is something that, by the way, guys, is far too prevalent. We're seeing it in too many schools. My inbox, overwhelmed with people from government, people from hospitals, people who are teachers writing this kind of stuff. And it's sick. It's truly sick. Did we celebrate when Jimmy Carter died? Did we celebrate when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died? Do we celebrate when anybody on the left dies? No, that's not what we do. Meanwhile, look at them celebrating from all this. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely crazy. You know what they're afraid of? Exactly what President Trump said at Charlie Kirk's memorial yesterday.
The lesson of Charlie's life is that you should never underestimate what one person can do with a good heart, a righteous cause, a cheerful spirit, and the will to fight. Have to fight. We're saving our country. And Charlie's a big factor, such a big factor. Charlie Kirk started with only an idea to change minds on college campuses, and instead he ended up with a far greater achievement, changing history. He changed history.
He changed history. He literally helped move a presidential election. That's exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did. And a lot of people see the attack on Charlie Kirk as an attack on all of us because he was the symbol. He was a leader of the conservative movement. I would say he's more powerful than the GOP. I would say the Turning Point had more of an impact on this election than the GOP did.
Charlie's murder was not just an attack on one man or one movement. It was an attack on our entire nation. That was a horrible attack on the United States of America. It was an assault on our most sacred liberties and God-given rights. The gun was pointed at him but the bullet was aimed at all of us. That bullet was aimed at every one of us. Indeed, Charlie was killed for expressing the very ideas that virtually everyone in this arena and most other places throughout our country deeply believed in. But the assassin failed in his quest because Charlie's message has not been silenced. It now is bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and it's not even close.
That's what the Democrats are worried about. They're absolutely freaking out because they don't know how to respond to all this. All they can respond with is hate. They don't have a message of their own. I was having this discussion with somebody else. The only Democrat with a message right now, and it's a horrible message, is Zoran Mamdani. Mamdani at least says, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. Not all orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. At least he's got a message. It's terrible. It's not going to work. It's communism. But at the same time, at least he's got a message. Democrats don't have one. All they do is scream and yell, scream and yell, scream and yell, scream and yell. In fact, the president called that out.
So I ask you, what did the Democrats stand for at this point?
I think chaos, confusion, anger. They're losers. They don't even want to extend the opening. We have a very successful country. If we gave them everything they wanted, they're deranged. If we gave them everything they wanted, they wouldn't extend, in my opinion. They say, oh, they want to meet with me. It's nonsense, but I'll meet with them. But no, they're angry, and they took a big loss, and they're doing worse now than they were during the election. So, they're doing very badly.
I'm not sure what the Democrat Party stands for anymore. I really don't know. It just seems to be whatever Antifa stands for, whatever the radical left stands for, whatever the college kids stand for. Over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, a lot of you are weighing in on Jimmy Kimmel. This one here. ABC should put on Don Kirshner's rock concert reruns. That's a good one. That's from William. This is another one here. This is from the 253. If both Nexstar and Sinclair dumped him, ABC will have very little choice. But if you let him out of his contract and cut him off, I suppose, and if nobody wants your product, why continue to offer it? Right, exactly. This one here, Nancy says, Jimmy Kimmel situation, only another Johnny Carson can make that time frame work. This is actually, somebody else says they could play old Carson, Ernie says they could play old Johnny Carson reruns and have a bigger audience than Jimmy Kimmel actually gets. Oh, that's a lot of fun. This one here, also from William. How about a revival of the Midnight Special? I don't know what that one is, William. I got to say, you may have predated me. How about the Avengers reruns like they did in Como all those years? Yeah, this is good. This one here from the 206. This stuff, they're referencing what was going on with that principal in the school in Oregon. This has been going on for years. Any teacher put on leave will simply be quietly moved to another school. Unfortunately, that seems to be the case a lot. It's not that they're moved to another school. They're kept on payroll and moved to the district's offices. Sometimes they pop up in another school, but oftentimes they're just sitting there inside that building doing God only knows what, but being paid by you and me. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Before we get to our good news giveaway, yesterday, Turning Point USA's memorial for Charlie Kirk. First of all, think about this. They managed to organize that thing in 5 days. 5 days. And that was top-notch production quality, lining up some really big speakers, all the security, everything else. Really, really incredible job. They managed to turn tears into a revival, into joy. It was really spectacular to watch. Also, I don't remember a memorial with this many smiles. There were a lot of jokes at this thing, and one of the best jokes of the day actually came from Donald Trump Jr.
I'm not widely known for being a sentimental guy. Anyone who's seen me on social media knows I'm far more likely to crack a joke or get myself in trouble for posting some grossly inappropriate memes than I am to shed a tear. I know this because I've even gotten the call from that guy a couple times.
He's pointing to the president.
Don, you're getting a little aggressive on social media, Don. Relax.
And then you've got President Trump sitting there smiling and kind of going, yeah, that happens. It was pretty entertaining. I liked the moments of levity. I really, really did during this whole thing. Makes healing a little bit easier from all of this. Meanwhile, good news locally for the Mariners. Yesterday, Cal Raleigh hit his MLB leading 58th homer on Sunday night, a 2-run shot for the Seattle Mariners in the second inning of a 7-3 win over the Houston Astros. The Mariners were up 5-0 after a grand slam by J.P. Crawford. In the second, when Raleigh, batting left-handed, connected off Jason Alexander, George Costanza was playing baseball for his home run to right field to extend the lead. According to Como News, as usual, Raleigh was more concerned about the team than his personal accomplishments and was thrilled the Mariners swept the series to take a 3-game lead in the AL West over the Astros with 6 remaining. It's nice to know that when they send out those playoff emails that you might actually get to buy the tickets this year. He said, honestly, you couldn't ask for a better 3-game set. Obviously, there's a lot on the line. I give credit to the guys here in the clubhouse who never flinched and brought the same energy every day, the same focus, wasn't satisfied after 1 win or 2 wins, and we finished the job. Raleigh's shot came a night after he passed Ken Griffey Jr. for the franchise single-season home run record with his 57th homer. Griffey hit 56 in both 1997 and 1998. Crawford raved about the season Raleigh is having. Quote, it's historic. We're watching history every day, and we're kind of surprised when he only gets base hits now. It's not really cool. If he hits a homer, everyone's just like, wow, he did it again. He's one step closer every time to more history, and it's really cool to see. Raleigh has also surpassed Mickey Mantle's previous MLB record of 54 home runs by a switch hitter that had stood since 1961. He also set the MLB record for homers by a catcher this season, eclipsing the 48 hit by Salvador Perez in 2021. Raleigh is 5 home runs ahead of Dodger star Shohei Ohtani and Phillies slugger Kyle Schwarber, who are tied for second place in the majors with 53 each. Huge, huge accomplishment. Meanwhile, my Mets continue their catastrophe. Their just absolute late-season collapse, where I'm watching this team completely fall apart at the end of the season. This is one of the most depressing things I've ever seen. And any of you who want to make fun of me, you are more than welcome to do so with the Mets payroll versus the Mariners payroll, given how absolutely embarrassing this is to see. In fact, for me, I don't even know if I want to be a Mets fan anymore. This is just depressing. And I know I'm going to say that until next season rolls around, and then I'm going to go, this is the year! This is the year! It's going to happen. Meanwhile, this one's here from Mike from King 5. Later this year, the National Toy Hall of Fame could induct snow. Yes, the cold white stuff that falls from the sky. But only if it ices out enough of the competition, a group that features hugely popular board games, outdoor favorites, and giggling plushies. The Hall of Fame announced its 12 finalists for the class of 2025 Wednesday and opened voting to the public and a panel of judges who will choose which few will be honored in November. Along with snow, the contenders include tabletop favorites Battleship, Catan, Connect 4, Spirograph, and Trivial Pursuit, as well as crowd pleasers, scooters, slime, and cornhole. I don't think Mike wants the scooters in the Hall of Fame. Those death machines.
No, still scarred for life. Celebrating 1 year of being scarred for life by a Lime scooter. But it's just scooters in general, not
just
necessarily
scooters.
E-scooters.
Exactly.
Or whatever. But do you have any favorites that you're pulling for in there?
So for me,
I have one very specific.
I know which one you're in favor of, especially the last 3 weeks you had, but I love me some Battleship. I really, really do. I like the Battleship just because of the dumb movie. No, I liked the game way before that. But I assume Mike's favorite is going to be a different one. Mike, what's yours?
I mean, it's the Connect 4.
Yes.
I mean, I am not only am I the mayor of the fair, but I am the master of the Connect 4. I mean, it's like, I'll make you cry. I'll make your kids cry.
Yes.
I'll make you cry in front of your kids. It's like, no, I mean, virtually undefeated at the Washington State Fair at our sister station, Hank FM, Cranking the Hank with Seattle's Real Country. That was the thing. It's Hank's favorite game, Connect 4, playing that table side. And over the last 3 weeks, I played a lot.
So I will say Mike beat me fair and square at the Connect 4, and then I was back at the fair yesterday.
Soundly is the word I would use.
Soundly, yes. And of course, we're both making a big spectacle of the thing, and Mike deservedly so of winning. He didn't make a big spectacle about winning. It was the game itself we were making a spectacle of because there was a camera. But then I beat Zach the next day, or excuse me, when I came back, and it wasn't satisfying. Because Zach said to me, yeah, I think I lost every game I played. So
he's not particularly good. His soul is trapped in my infinity gauntlet of vanquished opponents as well. Beat him a couple times.
Oh, it's very good. Very good. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today we're giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union, with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Plus, the Little Red Book of Retirement. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life. For 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots. Future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement, and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. Well, my friends, that's going to do it for us today. But fear not, we'll be back later this week with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. Wishing a happy New Year, Shana Tova, to all my Jewish friends. You've been listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.